Okay, let's go ahead and bring to order the Truckee Meadows Water Authority meeting for Wednesday, April 17th, 2024. If we could call for quorum.
Here?
Present.
Here.
Here.
Reese is on.
Here.
Very good. Very good. If you don't mind standing with me all, and we're going to have Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Zimmerman, would you lead us, sir?
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. We are moving on to public comment. Is there any public comment? And do you want to read do you have anything we got to read or anything?
No, Mr. Chair, I have it on the agenda.
It's all good. Okay, thank you so much. So no public comment. We're moving on to possible board comments or acknowledgements. Anything from the board? Okay. On to 5, approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any questions about the agenda? Discussion?
Motion to approve?
I have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? That passes unanimously. We're off to a good start. That's great. On to number 7, discussion and action on appointments to the Standing Advisory Committee, SAC. Oh, 6, did I skip one already? Oh. Approval of the minutes of the March 2024 meeting of the Tumwa Board of Directors. Any questions, discussion?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you all. Passes unanimously. Moving on now to 7, discussion and action on appointments to the Standing Advisory Committee, SAC, to fill the commercial customer alternate representative and other possible vacancies for terms beginning May 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2025. From the following pool of candidates listed in alphabetical order, Ryan Greenhall, and then Sonia Folsom, you're listed here as well. I don't know if you're going for it, but I'm just kidding. It just says your name on it. But thanks for joining us, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Board. Sonia Folsom for the record. We have openings, vacancies on the Standing Advisory Committee. And Mr. Greenhall here applied for the commercial customer representative alternate position. And the Standing Advisory Committee reviewed and approved for recommendation to you for consideration on their April 2nd committee meeting. And with that, I will answer any questions, or Mr. Greenhall here as well. You have his letter of application and of interest before you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you said this position is commercial,
Yes.
customer?
Yes, it is the commercial customer class. Mr. John Kompotic is the primary, and the vacant position has been vacant for about a year or so.
Oh, wow. Okay, what do you do, sir?
Electrical contractor.
Okay, great. Okay, and you use water.
Yeah, I do actually use water.
Is it at your house or at a business?
I'm
or-
on a well at my house, but my business is on Tumwa, and then I have some other properties that also have Tumwa. So.
Great.
Any other questions from the board? Devin, you just speak up when you want something. So we are looking for a possible action here. So do we have a motion to accept?
I move to approve.
So I do have a first. I have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Well, welcome, Ryan. Is there anything you do want to say before you go? You want to sing a song?
Well, I mean, what are you looking forward to? I mean, you
I
want
mean,
to-
I always think it's interesting to see how municipalities work. I always think it's interesting to see how municipalities work, and I don't know, just born and raised here, and obviously care a lot about what goes on with the valley and the water and how it's handled. So, yeah, but that's about it.
Thank you for your interest. Thanks for stepping up.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to water supply update with Bill Hauk. This will be a fun conversation. You keep making it snow and rain. Good job.
Good morning, Board. Yeah, a lot of good news again this month, so. Month of March was a really good month for the water supply. We had that, I'll say whopper of a storm to start the month off. We got anywhere from 8 to 12 feet of snow, up in the mountains. And then the month stayed cold enough to keep it up there. And then we had a couple decent-sized storms at the end of the month, so that by April 1st, the official NRCS snowpack measurement for the Tahoe Basin ended up being 114% of normal, or median, for that day. So this is our second above-average snowpack year in a row. Even at the lower elevations, there was still quite a bit of snow on April 1st. This is a picture of Donner Lake on April 1st, and that elevation's 5936, so you can see it was still quite a bit of snow up there then. This table shows at Mount Rose Ski Area, we had about 37 inches of water content in the snowpack as measured on April 1st, and normal is about 35 inches. So the Mount Rose Ski Area at 8,800 feet was about 105% of median, but averaged over the basin, it was 114% of normal. So if you look at the black line here, you can follow the water content of the snowpack since the beginning of the water year, October 1st, and contrast that to the green line, which is a percent or median for that day over the last 30 years. You can see the first 3 months of the year, we really were off to a slow start where it was snowing, but we really weren't getting the big storms that we needed until we got that big one to start off the month of March. So, and then the storms right at the end kind of put us over the top and kind of icing on the cake. So again, second above average snowpack year in a row. So the projected stream flow runoff this year is looking really, really good. In a normal year, Lake Tahoe rise, if you were to close all the gates from April through high, is about 1.16 feet. Looking at about 1.4 feet this year, 121% of normal or average. And same in the Truckee River Basin at the Farrad gauge, which is the USGS gauge at the state line, about 122% of normal runoff. So good news as far as that's concerned. You can see here in the green line, that is the projected runoff for the rest of the year. Nothing like last year where we had a 250% of normal snowpack, but still a really, really good year all around. So as you can imagine, that means really good things for our water supply. All the upstream reservoirs on the Truckee system, Independence, Donner, Stampede, Boca, Prosser, and Lake Tahoe will completely fill this year, including the Carson River, the only reservoir on the Carson system, Lahontan, that will fill as well. And in fact, Lake Tahoe and Lahontan right now are doing what's called precautionary drawdowns. They're actually releasing water to get ready for the runoff that's expected to come. So really good news. This graph shows in green projected Tahoe elevation rise from here through the end of the year. So Lake Tahoe will actually peak out to the maximum elevation limit this summer for a period of about 2 to 3 weeks. So probably in June and July. So didn't quite fill last year, came with about 8 inches shy, but we overcame a deficit of 6 feet last year too. This year we only had a 2 foot, 2 feet to overcome. So as you can imagine, as far as drought's concerned, all of California, the entire Sierra Nevada range, and the vast majority of Nevada are completely drought-free.
Wow.
And this is the map from the latest U.S. Drought Monitor as of last week. So just to sum it up, snowpack season got off to a rather slow start, but ended on an extremely positive note, above average for the second year in a row. Official Lake Tahoe snowpack this year was 114% of normal as measured on April 1st by the NRCS. Above average runoff projected for both Tahoe and Truckee basins. All reservoirs, including Tahoe, will completely fill this year. Normal flows are projected for the next 2 to 3 years. And so we know where our water supply is coming from for the next 2 to 3 years. That means normal supply operations for us once again. And the Sierra Nevada range and most of California and Nevada are completely drought-free. And regional supply outlook really couldn't be any better.
Good job. Thank you very much. Any questions that we want to put out there for Mr. Hauk? Welcome. For the record, Miss Hill is in the house. Woo-woo! Party can start. So, very good. Well, thank you very much for that report. We are moving on to number 9, which is presentation on proposed conservation, communications, and outreach plan for 2024. This is Robert Charpentier and Cami Elquist Lorray. Did I say that right? Yes. Thanks for the capital R on here. That helps me.
There's also an accent I do over the E, but
Oh.
Good morning. For the record, Robert Charpentier, Truckee Meadows Water Authority. So yeah, it's the annual drill. We're presenting our conservation communications plan, and with me is Cami Elquist-Luray, who is from Good Standing Public Outreach, and essentially since the inception of Truckee Meadows Water Authority, Good Standing has aided TUMWA in our communications planning. Cami in particular brings profound expertise in strategic planning, and so starting way back last year, she took the staff, walked us through a process where she gathered our needs. You know, we had pretty rich conversations about what's coming up this year, how we can plan for it to make sure the public understands everything that we're doing. So, Kim, you want to walk us through it?
okay, I'll take the first few slides, so no? Okay. All right, so, TUMWA has standing communication pillars, and most of our messaging falls within these 4 areas. We know that we need to communicate about water quality to establish trust regarding the standards with the product that we produce. That is to bolster consumer confidence, of course. Conservation, we know that that's mandatory here. We have to conserve, we have been conserving. And then as we get into winters where we don't have a great winter, like Bill just explained, we know that we have to ramp up conservation activities. So that's always something we do in good years or bad. Water leadership, that's something that it's relatively new. About 5 years ago, we started to get more involved with taking a active role in messaging on water resource management topics in the community. So at that time, we created a Smart About Water Day. We created the Smart About Water brand, and we really wrap a lot of our leadership activities around that brand, being smart about water, in that TUMWA is, and looking forward in the way it manages its water, and also that our community is, in the way that they conserve, and they always have conserved. They really are great stewards of the water. You know, a lot of people know about Assigned Day water, and they follow it. So water leadership is, bringing all of that together in a water resource management perspective and helping our community see the bigger picture. And then finally, the customer experience. This is really transactional. This is about making sure that our customers, they know how to pay their bill. You know, everything about their bill is clear, that we help them in paying on time, making sure that there's no barriers in order to do that. So that's very much a transactional thing, but it's an important aspect of our communication as well.
Yeah, one of the things I would add about customer experience, it's something we focus very heavily on because all of these other elements, people's perception of water quality, conservation, our position in the community as water leaders, in a way hinges on their experience with us as our customers, because that's the primary experience they have with us. That's the initial experience they have with us. So when that's smooth and that's happy and positive, then they're going to be much more receptive to what we have to say about everything else. So it's a focus.
Very true. Okay, we have standing responsibilities with regards to our core tactics and timing, and this is just a chart to sort of let you know what those are. We really start to ramp up in April with our workshops, and then as we get into May, the first weekend in May is always Smart About Water Day, and again, it'll be like that this year. So we're kicking off the 5th annual Smart About Water Day. We missed a couple years in COVID times, but this is the 5th one, and so it'll be at McKinley, actually, and it'll be on the 4th of May. Please come and join us from 10 to 2. And then also, we've got our, Tahoe to Tap tour at Glendale Water Treatment Plant. Our paid advertising campaign kicks off in May, and this year we'll start it off with drip system maintenance, about how TUMWA plans. In June through September, we rotate our paid advertising, and then as we get into the fall, we tour hydroelectric facilities, water treatment plant tours, and then finally, the bulk of our outreach activity that is a standing responsibility happens in October, where we help customers winterize their systems so they don't get frozen problems and leaks and such. That's our standing responsibilities. But we know that, TUMWA is a really dynamic organization, and every year something's going on. So what we do every fall, early winter, is that we get together as a communication team. We assess what's going on with TUMWA and what's going to be rolling out within the next year. And then we figure out, of those activities, what needs to be incorporated in our communication pillars. At that point, we reach out and we assess with our managers and directors, with stakeholders, and we also source our customer surveys with regards to how that messaging needs to be positioned. So all of that comes into play late fall, early winter, and it really drove what you now see on this slide. That first row of text you see is basically our efforts that will combine with existing things that we're doing. And then the bolded second row, those are all new initiatives that we are going to start this year. So as we look at what we're already doing with onboarding, is we want to make sure that we're streamlining the signups for paperless billing and auto pay. Not only does it save customers time and money, it saves TOMWA the expense, the billing expense of sending those bills out, which as they aggregate makes up for pretty substantial savings operationally. And we also want to make sure that, as student groups come into our water treatment plants, as you can imagine with a whole bunch of students, some are engaged and some aren't. So we had a discussion last fall, how do we help improve this experience? So as classrooms want to come and take water treatment plant tours, what we'll do is we'll front load those teachers with information about the water treatment process. That way they come into the tours with some context, number one. And then as the students are going through the tours, we're going to look for ways to tie in what they are seeing and how that might relate to what they are learning in the classroom. So, and maybe we even will, we might even, generate a few pop quizzes for the teachers to use with the students. And the point is to get a little more focus for some of the students that are having trouble focus, and also make sure that it is everything it can be for the teachers as they're getting their kids through that process, and maybe they get a little more out of it. But the next series of slides will go over the new initiatives. This educational outreach, it stems from a pain point in that there's many in our community that really don't understand our water system compared to other water systems in the West, and we get roped into a lot of coverage, especially during drought, which even clouds that a little bit more. So what we would like to do is offer ways for and opportunities to bring local information about our water system into the classroom. So DRI has an already pre-existing program called Science Alive, and they already have curriculum writers on staff. So we reached out to them. They have a curriculum called Nevada Water, but in that curriculum, there's nothing about the Truckee River system in there. So even if local, teachers want to reach out to DRI for curriculum help, in meeting standards, none of it reflects our water system. So we wanted to change that. So we started working with DRI and Washoe County School District to make sure that they would be on board if we did this, and everyone is. So we identified 3 different areas that we could focus on: environmental science, which will bring in curriculum with regards to our local watershed. Earth science will start to explore the connections between surface water and groundwater and start to raise awareness about the assets that we have in our aquifers. And then finally, chemistry and biology, which will explain the role of science in producing water that is safe. So I think it's going to take about 3 to 4 years to do all this, but we are starting with environmental science. And an important aspect of all of these modules is that each one of them will kick off with a professional development day. So for example, this August we'll have a professional development day for teachers to where we'll take them out to the Ladybug wildfire mitigation effort up at Stampede. We'll take them over to Galena to see the Forest Ambassador program that we have there to protect runoff from Whites Creek. So we'll give teachers a really hands-on way to understand science principles that they can take back into the classroom. And the nice thing about this is they'll be able to get professional development credits, and those credits go towards elevating their pay scale. So that's sort of the complete package on that. We've got the green light from Washoe County School District. DRI is on board, so we're right at the beginning stages of that, and we're pretty excited.
I have a quick question on
yeah.
that. One of the things that has been out there right now that's kind of going well is some certificate type things. Have we thought about, if a student goes through these, having something official just from TOMWA? It just goes good on their resume if they're looking to get in college or they're going somewhere.
We haven't thought about that, but I think
It
that
might
that's-
even initiate
yeah.
some of these guys to finish all 3 of them so they can get the certificate, where, if they go through the 3 or something. It's just
Right.
something that I know colleges look at, even play, anything that looks official, if they, I don't
Yeah.
know, something to consider.
Yeah, we'll look for opportunities and where we can do that, for certain. Yeah.
One of the real added benefits of this educational program, and Cammie's done a wonderful job in pulling it all together, but, as we move forward with the Advanced Purified Water Facility, we all know and we've all heard, the technology is there, the technology is great. The real challenge is often public acceptance, and we view this as being a very strong tool, because when people have a more comprehensive understanding of how our water resources are managed, why we're doing this, what the technology is like, it becomes a much easier job, getting the word out and having people, then you start having these discourse groups talking to each other rather than just listening to us, and helping each other understand why it's an important project and why it has value. So this is foundational for that kind of
Great.
conversation.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that recommendation. We'll look for opportunities as we develop it out. We're right in the beginning stages, so that's a perfect time to start plugging that kind of thing in. So that's the educational outreach with DRI. Right now, as we move into the summer, we have about over 60% of Tumwa's customer base has advanced water meters. I think it's going to be about 65% in July. So the conservation focus for messaging isn't necessarily about ramping up conservation efforts. It's about identifying the tools that AMI customers have with being able to set leak alerts, with being able to set up high usage alerts, and raising awareness that they get near real-time water usage insight. So in that way, we're just preventing unnecessary waste. And so that's the kind of messaging that we want to start advancing this summer, so people start to get familiar with the technology that they have at their fingertips. And then, in the eventuality that we do run into another drought, they're familiar with the technology and can employ it maybe to a more stringent degree if needed. But, it's something that will start in July, and we're looking forward to having this at Smart About Water Day and starting to interact with the public about that. Yep. So, and then finally, let's see, there's a couple more, and you're gonna take the One Water Nevada one, okay. Okay, so the watershed protection awareness, CAR has done some great work that we know about with the Middle Truckee River Watershed Forest Partnership. I've got to get that in, right? And so at any rate, but it's a collaborative. And so what TOMWA is doing, we're spearheading the development of a communication plan, so all the partners understand sort of their role in the outreach activity, so nothing falls through the cracks, and we're making sure that we're not missing opportunities. The primary focus is to make sure that the public is aware of the forest activity that's going on, especially when it starts to, happen at trailheads or in popular areas where there's hiking or mountain biking or what have you. And then the other spectrum of the communication objective is to make sure that key stakeholders are aware of what's going on, and also the small successes as the programs go, as the projects get finished. So we're just starting that as well. And we've got an outline for the group to look at, and we'll be working with the U.S. Forest Service and the National Forest Foundation in developing that further this summer. And then it's a lot like the partnership that we have going with One Water Nevada. So let's see, you wanted to take these slides? Or do you?
Yeah, no, it's
Okay.
very similar in that there's multiple groups working on a single project, and we're coordinating together from a communications perspective to get the word out about it. So no, Cammie, I'm not ready to do this slide. It was the next slide.
Okay, then I'll roll on. Okay, so just being able to begin to leverage awareness about A+ water. If you look through the customer journey, we always want to make sure people are onboarded with the billing and the bill payment and auto pay. We want to make sure that they're aware of the system with our water treatment plant tours. We also want to make sure that they feel supported and they're engaged with regards to our conservation programs. And then ultimately, if we earn trust through all of those stages, we might begin to have some advocacy coming from our customer base as well. So we want to make sure that we are leveraging that advocacy that we are beginning to see in our stakeholders with regards to A-plus water. So we'd like to begin to develop some assets this summer with regards to video shorts with all different stakeholders in our community, those with a lot of social capital, so we can begin to get A-plus represented from a third-party perspective, which adds credibility, and it's not just Tumwa and One Water Nevada or City of Reno always talking about this stuff. So that's what we would like to do, is to begin to develop those assets. Then as key milestones in the project come that do gain media awareness, we have assets in our quiver, if you will, that we can bring forward to help support those milestones of the project. So that's something new that we'll be doing this year.
So, as Ken was saying, and as we look at what we're going to be doing this year and how we're going to be pacing it out, we're being very sensitive to the pace of the project itself. So we're gonna be breaking ground towards the end of the year, and as Kemi said, we're going to be building up assets through the course of the year that we'll be able to roll out as needed. So, right now, we're kind of waiting for it to pick up steam, and, we're listening. Obviously, we're spending a lot of time, we pay attention to what's going on social, what the conversation is around the project, and so far it's been quiet. We know as we start getting closer, as we start having events like Smart About Water Day and bringing it into the public discourse, we need to have all of the content ready to go to essentially foster that discussion in a positive direction. So Q2, what do we have? Smart About Water Day, obviously. We're going to be, let's see, you got the videos, Q3, Speakers Bureau. Yeah, I don't really have much to add to this. It's kind of a calibrated waiting game. We have to have our materials ready to go and just wait to see which direction the conversation flows. So 2025 is when it's going to really pick up pace, and we're gonna have to be ready to hit the ground running.
Right, and I think the other aspects, the other swim lanes, if you will, that you see in the rows represented on this slide is that the core stakeholder engagement has been going on. We have been doing meetings. There has been meetings out at STED. They've been reaching out to neighborhood groups. This aspect of outreach is already in place. And also, we've been doing tours at California water reuse facilities to help local leaders and local regulators understand the technology. So those are ongoing, actually. One is coming up next month. So, that's happening. The public meetings are happening. Everything that NDEP wants us to do is happening in that top row. Our job, of course, is the public outreach in that middle swim lane, and then developing the assets with our partners. So we want to make sure, again, a lot like the Middle Truckee River Partnership, that we're working in sync and understanding there's a lot of different things happening already. And we just want to make sure that we're ready with the assets that we need as the project moves on.
May I ask a
Please.
Yeah, I could kind of pause here. Just have a question under the community influencer. How are you working to determine who and where you want to interact with those folks? And I'm just curious. I mean, obviously I got to hear some cool things there in Denver, but I'm just curious where you guys are in the process.
Well, I think we've got a pretty decent roster of people who have taken the tours in California. So we'll be working with Data Instincts and Mark Milan to identify those that have reached out to him. A lot of people have reached out to Robert and Lydia. They're enthusiastic about the project. One endorsement that we have right now is with the Nature Conservancy. We have a letter of endorsement with them, so we definitely want to elevate that as well. So it's those people that have a little bit of background, they understand it well enough that they feel comfortable in lending their support to it publicly, and then leveraging the endorsements we're already getting, the Nature Conservancy, WRI, the acronym, it's the research group that is reviewing all of the process. NDEP, once those kind of permits come through, that's another milestone of endorsement. So it's leveraging groups associated with those activities.
Okay,
And
so it's
endorsements.
more high-level influencers. I guess I'm looking more at community. So reaching into various parts of our community that might not necessarily have a voice, and getting buy-in there. I'm just curious. I mean, my head's kind of spinning right now thinking of all the opportunities that you could use that in that community, it's an influencer, whether it's a business or a segment of our population, whatever.
I think right now the two key channels that we've been employing or will be employing is both the educational initiative, because then you've got teachers, you've got students, they're having conversations with their parents, they're talking on social media, they're correcting misinformation when it's out there about various projects like potable reuse. But also the tours, I think, are very powerful. So many of you have been on those. I just got word that Sean Hill, for instance, from Sierra Nevada Journeys will be going on one of these tours. So that's a case where somebody in our community who is constantly having conversations about water and water resources is going to be able to see it firsthand. So it's really the backbone that spiders out. And then, to the extent that those of you who have been on those tours can have conversations that I know you do, and help people understand what it is that we're doing and why it's a positive thing for our community. So that's as far as, monitoring social and looking for informed conversations or misinformed conversations. We, of course, do that all the time, and we jump in when it seems appropriate. I mean, are we getting to that? Was there a layer that you're?
No, and actually, I think you use the term backbone, and I'm thinking foundation, but yeah. So what you're looking at is kind of started out and then branching into the community as time goes on and the project kind of advances. So
I'm super excited about particularly where, the teachers are going to come in. They're going to be able to get, in-service training hours for essentially educating themselves about, what's going on in our region. So now you've got people in the classroom having a conversation, with their students who in turn will be having conversations at home. I can't think of one pressure point that we could push on that would provide a more positive outcome than that. I mean, there are a lot of other little ones, but that one in particular really, really excites us with its potential, so.
And then the timing of that is important, I think, with DRI, because we've got a few different modules that will roll out: the earth science, the environmental science, and then we get into chemistry and biology. And that timing, about 3 years down the road, will probably be about the time where a lot of this stuff is really starting to ramp up. So I think that the timing is going to work with regards to educating students so they have conversations at home with family, or at least begin to start talking about the topic. But as far as getting influencers going at the grassroots level, I think we have to just keep our ear to the ground on that. I think it's a little too soon to start identifying who those folks might be, but I think we just have to keep our ear to the ground on it.
Any other?
I couldn't encourage all of you enough to the extent that you're comfortable to weigh in, particularly in social, when you feel like a conversation isn't well informed, because you have the credibility, you're on our board, and you're the ones who know. So it's very powerful when you comment. So please
Thank
do.
you. Any other board members? Yes, Ms. Burkus.
I do like the education approach into the schools. I'm teaching right now, community college, bachelor's and designer seekers, architecture and landscape architects. And in the public facilities module, if they had come through the schools in that baseline information, just knowing anyone in the built environment world should know enough to ask and have a functioning understanding of how a water system works. We're not focused on, we case study Tumwa, simple system, but, it's in general, as you go out into, the West primarily. But the one thing that that's just kind of a comment. The one thing I'm not saying that I think needs to be messaged, and, kind of thinking about it too from an academic perspective, is, we are in a housing affordability crisis in many population, levels of the population. And as you start to understand and peel away what housing costs are, utility costs are significant and should always be calculated into housing, what someone's spending for their housing. And I'm not hearing any connection to that. And I think that's an important message, because it's always about someone's own budget. Like you mentioned, the customer experience, which has a budget component. So I think a message that's missing and a story to be told is, one, we understand that your housing costs are utility costs. And because I think people understand that more than it is made it known in public policy, and we are responsible stewards of that you know, and here's how we do it. You know, people's eyes might gloss over on that, or they might gloss over on the chemistry lesson, but, you know, this is really something that hits them a lot at home, and I think there is a good story to be told, you know, and we're gonna get to some of those items. That's why I didn't support the CPI, you know, rate motion resolution a while back, because I thought that was a good check to appropriate public budgeting. But I still think Tumwa stands as a good steward of those utility costs that hit someone's household every single month. And sometimes I think, because we're moving into so much renter housing stock, is the utilities can get blasted by landlords for, you know, raises, kind of be like, oh, it's their rate, it's their costs that are hitting me. And so I think there's a way to diffuse some of that by saying, no, you have a very strong steward of your public dollars and your household costs on a monthly basis doing this, and the other thing. So
Yeah.
I would just suggest a module like that or a
Yeah, I
story
think
like
we're in
that.
it together too, because, you know, customers have an opportunity to reduce expenses with Tumwa and save money too when they go paperless or, you know, auto pay or.
Yeah.
You know, I think
Yeah,
that
that's a good point.
there's certain nexus points that are really interesting, that we're really in it together. I think conservation is another really good example of that. And it's not like we're telling anyone to do anything. It just makes good sense, not only for our community, but also to keep utility costs as minimal as possible in expenses that we can control, or, you know, managing the resource in a way that works from a long-term perspective.
The AMI meter is another example
Yeah.
where, you know, we're empowering our customers to better monitor their use and manage their use. So, but I hear what you're saying, and we could always definitely strengthen that message.
And a big part of that is at Smart About Water Day, Matt Bowman and Sophie Cardinal, that is a large part of what they talk about as customers and the residents come in. We explain that to everyone.
Yeah, and then finally, we always are updating the stakeholder map just to make sure that we're keeping a mind's eye on, you know, all the groups in our community that we're touching, or that, you know, have some kind of a tie into our operation. So this year, we are recognizing that everyone that has a logo on this page are also involved with the stakeholder map that you see inside. And yeah, these are organizations that we are going to be working really closely with in the coming year.
So, quick question. One, I don't see Sparks on there, but
It's COR, sorry, I don't know how to point on this.
the other,
These are the cities, these are the municipalities right here, COR, COS, WC, just running out of space.
I'm talking about the logo, but, so,
Oh, I'm just talking about, I'm sorry, the One Water Nevada collaboration that we're doing with the communication team over there, that's all.
but it goes into my point of what I want to share. So, I wouldn't assume, because we are all jurisdictionally here, that all of the other people who are elected next to us understand everything that's happening. That would be a misnomer, because it's not true. We try to share, and sometimes we're all on so many boards and so many things. So it's wise for you guys to make sure you make it into our chambers. It's very wise. So the rest of the electeds, we don't get to the end here and we have a couple people who decide what, you know, the education. So keep educating, but I would encourage you to be in Reno, in Sparks, and in the county, and making sure that when we get to the end of this road, that whether someone has a decision they're making or not, it's not because of lack of education, that they understand all of it. So, yeah.
Great point, Mr. Chairman. And I'm so impressed with this educational curriculum that you're doing. Wow. I mean, I feel like this is just adding to that communication and making it so much more rich, and really involving like youth to teachers who are all members of this community to learn that information. So, I mean, I'm so excited about it. I'm like, I hate to give you more work, but wouldn't PBS want to do something about this? Like,
It's interesting, we did engage with PBS last, well, a few months ago, actually.
Okay.
And we are starting to engage with them. They've got a STEMWorks program. And so I'm working with them over there. We did our first set of videos with regards to water treatment operator jobs.
Great.
Chemistry, biology,
Yeah.
water treatment. And it was great. We had a great time with that. And so we recognize them as a potential partner as we build this out. Once we get to that, you know, that point in our education. But definitely, the
I mean,
STEMWorks process is
even
perfect.
like them filming the teachers on the tour and doing some of that initial, I don't know, if that's interesting to me, and maybe a story that other communities would be jealous of, to see that interaction between the utility and the schools, and talking about the water system, and really, you know, educating people about this community and our water system. But
Yeah, yeah.
just a thought.
I could pitch it that way for sure. Yes, I will.
You're already there. So, and then the other thought I had was, I was thinking about the Keep Tahoe Blue slogan and how it's just been so successful in the community. And with the A+ program, I think we need something like that, that people identify with and understand. It's like, keep the Truckee in the Truckee, or I don't know, you know. I'm not the creative one here, but I thought, like, oh, what if we had kids, you know, do that as part of the curriculum, some sort of the STEAM aspect of, like, drawing what the river system is, or do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Anyway, it's not fully formed, but that's just a thought I had about
Oh,
that.
but you planted the seed, so we'll be thinking about
Okay.
that on ways to develop that up further.
But great work.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Just kudos to this program. You've done a very integrated, layered program on hitting on all of these sort of messaging platforms and concepts. One thing I didn't hear you say, but it may be just something you're doing, but didn't want to talk about, but it's the use of Project WET in the lower level schools. You mentioned high school, but I don't know if you know about Project WET, water education.
Project, what, yeah, the Nevada Department of Education, or Environmental Protection. Yes, yes, I am familiar with that
Yeah.
program.
I didn't know if there was a way we could collaborate with them. So it's a teacher training program about water education. You had the high school component, which is more advanced. But when you were discussing that, that's what I was thinking about is, can we work with them to get that program more widely spread? Because I think DEP is very short-staffed to do those kind of things, and they have to cover the whole state. And so having a local sponsor might be helpful.
That would be good. You know, they reached out to us for Smart About Water Day about 3 years ago, and then COVID happened, and then we haven't had any
Yeah.
interaction with them since.
Well, they've got the model, they've got a water model, you know, physical model that you can touch and see.
Yeah.
They've got a bigger watershed model. They have all the exercises in the Project WET handbook that are very good for teachers, a half day, you know, in-service training. And we could coordinate with, again, Washoe County Schools on that. So just something else to put into your quiver there.
I love it. That could be actually a really good audience channel to get information out about the Professional Development Day, for example.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, so
And
thank
you know what? I find that it's been interesting, an analogy. So we lowered the speed limit on veterans just in the night to prevent hitting horses. And so we have a day speed, night speed. Apparently done nowhere in Nevada. This is a first. But what I've heard from parents is that it's often their kids telling them, Dad, slow down. It's the lower speed for horses. And it's just like kids were with smoking, right? Teaching their parents. They seem to be on it about the speed limits and getting them knowledgeable about the water through the teachers, and then having the teachers do the program will have, you know, spillover effects on the parents. So just another avenue.
Thank you. We're gonna have to go on because we've been
Yes.
talking for a while. But it's a good conversation and thank you. Appreciate it. I don't think there's anything you need. It says for motion, but I don't believe we have anything to make motion for. But thank you. Look forward to hearing more. And
Thank you.
and please update that so we have Washoe County and Sparks on there as well. That'd be good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, moving on to 10. And we have presentation on proposed planning process for the 2025 to 2045, man, how old will we be then? Water Resource Plan, Cara Steeland.
Hi, good morning, Board. This will be a fairly brief item. I can't believe it, but we are starting the planning process for our 2025 to 2045 Water Resource Plan, also referred to as the 2045 WRP for ease. We've received a lot of positive feedback about the format of the 2020 to 2040 plan. If you remember, if you were on the board then, we did a pretty big overhaul of what the plan used to look like, and we've received a ton of positive feedback about that plan and used it as a real education and outreach tool for the community with what Cammie and Robert were just talking about. And so we'll really be building off the success of that plan, and we envision that the new plan will be fairly similar in content and format to that existing plan. So not a whole overhaul this time, which is great. And in the staff report, you can see a preliminary timeline, and it just shows some of the key milestones that we're proposing for the planning process. It's pretty broad at this point in time, but our goal is to present a final plan to the board in September of 2025. Between now and then, the board will have multiple opportunities to provide comments and feedback on the plan, including at a a policy workshop that will most likely take place in August of this year, very similar to what we did during the last planning cycle. And additionally, there will be opportunities for public outreach and comment throughout the update process. We will create a more formal outreach plan for that public comment period in 2025. And we are going to start off with kind of a kickoff at Smart About Water Day in May, in a few weeks, with a little bit of an interactive exhibit that people can come and kind of discuss what they're interested in. And then, so the plan itself, we're kind of envisioning that the entire plan will be revised to obviously reflect the changes that have occurred over the past 5 years. So all, relevant graphs, tables, figures, and projections will be updated. And then highlighted in the staff report are some of the key sections that will be updated in a little bit more detail or will be added to the new version of the plan. And so that was pretty broad, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments on the planning process. And again, there's more detail in the staff report on specific sections if anyone wants to discuss.
Yeah, thank you, Cara. You said, that you've heard a lot of feedback over the last 5 years, but I was mostly interested in the first thing you said about basically the structure. Could you just give us some high-level description of what you hope to change?
For the plan itself?
Yeah.
So the structure itself will probably be fairly similar. We have been in discussions with the communications team on kind of creating an executive summary that's more of a standalone document. So kind of an 8 to 10 page document that we could hand out to the community that's really accessible and readable. That would probably be the largest change in terms of format. And then some of the other things that would be added are potentially to add kind of a section more about regional challenges. We don't really have that in the current plan. It's kind of woven throughout, but to provide some context, a lot more emphasis on advanced purified water. It was in the future resources section in the previous plan. Obviously, it's becoming a current resource, so that will be moved and expanded. Our future water supply scenarios, we did a pretty extensive climate change modeling last time around, and we have been in discussions with DRI and others at UNR, and those existing climate change scenarios are still pretty much the best science we have for our region. So we're gonna kind of re-examine those, reevaluate them, and look at how additional future supplies could help kind of offset future impacts. So we're gonna use the existing science we have, but kind of do a reanalysis. Bill Hauk is also going to look, there was a study recently completed that looks at 500 years of Truckee River hydrology based on tree rings, and he's going to use that and run it through our river modeling software to look at how our water supplies would fare under those conditions. And then the future resources options section will be expanded to include increased groundwater banking and probably direct potable reuse too as a future resource. And our watershed protection section will be expanded quite a bit based on the work we're doing.
That's a lot. I just have one follow-up. Recently, about a year ago, the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency did a complete overhaul on their website. And then they recently helped Western Regional Water Commission update their website. I was wondering, and this is what I don't know, in your website at Tumwa, do you have a whole standalone section for the water plan?
We do not. We have it, it's just linked as a PDF.
Well, what I would love, and this is me, one board member, but what I would love is like a mini version of what they're doing at those two agencies and a whole set-aside section of the web that talks about this project, gives all the information, public outreach, drafts, as drafts get developed, post them. If you have feedback, post that. But once, as you get done, it seems like putting all the data stuff together in one place related to the water plan would be a great service to the public, because they could, they're going less to reading lengthy tombs and more to bits of data and information, and perhaps that's something you can talk with the team about.
I think that's a great suggestion.
And do know, and I say this for all of us, that there's going to be even more conversation as we go. Today's main thing was to tell us that this has started.
Yeah.
So we were aware of it. But I think
Thought I better tell you now, so it's not like halfway through and you're going, well, we don't really have time for that, or whatever.
well, and those are things that, like I said, we can bring back and look at the bigger picture. But I do think the better we can communicate, and our website is our landing page these days. But do know that if there's lacking, there's some depth. That there's a lot of things we could talk about on this, and purposely today was a goal is to do a check mark and say the race has begun. There'll be more stuff coming, but also if you have ideas or questions, they can come out in the board meeting, but you also can reach out to John Zimmerman as well and just say, hey, got some thoughts, so.
Yeah, we're definitely open to any suggestions
Yeah,
and comments you
exactly.
have.
And I think it's a good suggestion. I'm just at large saying what we're doing there. I'd even be looking for collaboration because they've done a lot of work similarly linking or whatever, but, good, you have some?
I don't want to break open meeting law,
So
certainly,
don't.
but I agree with Councilwoman Dewar because I think she's speaking to continual constituent
Yeah.
requests on this piece. So there's a way that we could just be like, go to
Well, I don't think you're open meeting. That doesn't-
resource plan
That doesn't break
website.
anything. That has to do with this.
Okay.
You're welcome. And I don't disagree with it. I actually do agree that there needs to be some web, all of that. I even think interactive stuff's always fun. I would just say the reason that you don't see all this laid out is that they're just shooting off the gun saying we've begun. So there's a lot to come and a lot of things. Cool.
Great.
With that said, anybody else want to share anything? We're not trying to stop you necessarily by any means. We just want you to know this is the beginning. There might be some stuff that they haven't even dreamt up yet.
Well, here's a question. So when
Sure.
are you planning to come back next?
So we're going to have the policy workshop in August, and we had discussed potentially coming back earlier than that too, to garner ideas about the policy workshop, but we could also potentially discuss other. Yeah.
So, well, I just think this, starting now, at the very beginning, starting a new page on the website and slamming everything in there and adding a lot of the graphics, whatever you're going to be developing would be really good.
Yeah,
Thanks.
great feedback, thank you.
Cool. So you have direction, but truthfully, I don't think we made anything for motion, just informative. Okay,
Thank you.
very good. Thank you so much. We're on to 11, and presentation and information report on proposed future adjustments to schedule WSF fees. David Kershaw and Danny Roder.
Morning, Chair and Board. This is Danny Roder, Director of Engineering for the record, while Dave gets situated here. I joked at the Standing Advisory Committee, I have one manager named David Deagle and one named David Kershaw, and I'm Danny. So you got the 3 Ds working on engineering stuff here. Dave's gonna give you a little peek into how the cake is made here and the methodology and the details. But I just wanted to kind of piggyback on the water resource plan. Once the water resources plan, we do our facility planning. Once the facility planning is done, we do these fees, and just like you're seeing, it starts all over again. So, just a high level, give you some background. It's in the staff report, not necessarily Dave's informational thing here, but we reached out to the Builders Association and the NAIOP Commercial Real Estate Group. We didn't hear back from BAN after a number of kind of back and forths about, can we get a meeting, can we not, what should we do? Kind of went ghost there. And then NAIOP participated in our Zoom meeting. So we had a public workshop in person. We did the SAC meeting on April 2nd, and then we did 2 Zoom meetings on April 4th. After the SAC meeting, our Builders Association representative from the SAC took this exact presentation to the Builders Association board directly. And so he said they would reach out if they had anything. We haven't heard anything. So with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Dave. Dave and his team have done a great job crunching all the numbers, doing all the planning. And anything good is from him, so appreciate that.
And so everyone knows this is going to be a public hearing, and what we'll do is have you finish out. We will open for public hearing, and then we'll just go back to all of us. So we'll get the public hearing portion. So if anybody in the public had anything to say, we would hear what they had to say before we do all that.
Mr. Chair, let me make sure that we're on 11 though, but the public hearing is actually 12, right? So this is like a preamble to the hearing, is that right?
The
Yeah, so-
intention was to kind of give you the information,
Yeah.
then go into the public
Okay.
hearing
I
with
just wanna
the
make sure I know.
specific red
Thank you for
lines.
that. Actually, I had it confused. So I'm wrong. So thank you.
Oh,
No, you're right. We'll go ahead and answer any questions on this that we have, but we'll bring it back in 12 for a public hearing. Okay, thank you. I had it wrong. Cool. So 11 is open, 12 is not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, David Kershaw, good morning. In probably a brief presentation in regards to how we come up with or revise the water system facility charges or the.
Can you speak a little more into your microphone? Sorry.
New development connection fees is basically what we're looking at. And so historically, Tumwa's board has basically established a policy that no customer class shall subsidize another, and therefore growth shall pay for growth in regards to infrastructure that's needed to be constructed to deliver additional capacity to new developments. And so historically, we've come back to the board and updated our fees on a periodic basis. In general, in the last few years here, it's been basically almost on a every 2 years or thereabouts. And so you can see there in regards to that table, we started our connection fees in 2002, implemented a couple other categories of fees in 2003, and we've updated them since. One thing to note in that is that the 2006 update, we did go out, they did hire consultants to review the methodology that we currently use, and with very few corrections, approved the methodology. And so we've continued with that methodology since that point in time. And so we're looking at the current fee update to be hopefully implemented on July 1st, pending board hearings. And so basically, how does Tumwa pay for growth? We have 3 subcategories of fees that are applied to new developments. So we have a kind of a supply and treatment facility charge, which is basically associated with the recovery of costs associated with building wells, raw water supply, water treatment plants. We have a storage facility fee as well. And so that's associated with construction of tanks and reservoirs that would serve new growth. And then we have area fees. These are generally associated with transmission mains, booster pumps, and other system interties that deliver water to various areas in our service territory. And just to kind of, one of the things, let me go back to our map real quick here. So to give you an idea of allocation of cost per area fee, what we might have is, we might have a development up in, let's say, Spanish Springs that would require a booster pump station to serve that additional growth. And so we can allocate the cost via the area charges that way. And areas to the south, let's say in the South Meadows, that have no benefit from that facility, you would not allocate that booster pump station costs to those areas. And so we're able to subjugate where the fee should be applied based on what that facility is serving. And so just the area fees as well are basically $1 per maximum day GPM. That's how the units are in regards to that. And then again, these area fees, these connection charges are associated with new demand or growth only and do not get applied to existing rate payers or existing customers. So basically, why is it necessary to update these fees? And so what we're really looking at every time we go through this process of updating, we have a point in time and a snapshot in time in which we develop these fees, and they're based on the best available information at that point in time. And as we move forward in time, we want to be able to incorporate new data in regards to revising those fees. And so it gives us the opportunity to, especially in this particular case as well, we just recently completed the 2040 water facility plan update, which would have revised some of the facilities we've identified that need to be constructed. And so we can incorporate that. We incorporate current cost inflation of new facilities. We can incorporate facilities that recently built, and we can actually incorporate the costs that were associated with those facilities that were built. And then also fees that we've connected in the last few years in which we're doing this update. And so as you can see on this slide here, it kind of gives you an idea in regards to the water facility plan. We've identified almost $200 million of new infrastructure needed to serve growth. And so we need to make sure that we capture that in this fee update and make sure we're recovering those costs in the future. And so just kind of, this slide gives you an idea of where we've seen prices changed in the last few years since the last update. And so right now we're looking at average water main costs of $30 per linear foot per inch diameter. That's about a 20% increase since the last time we've did this update. Average pump station costs have increased to about 3.2 million. And so that's about a 50% increase in costs. Average well cost, 3.7 million, it's another 90% on that one. And then tank costs have gone way up.
Crazy.
That's the last time we looked at this.
And the last time was when?
2 years ago.
So, yeah,
Years?
yeah, I was gonna say, can we say for a second? This doesn't, so we're saying, according to what we've done, so all new growth will pay for this piece of it, but that seems very extreme. That's pretty huge jumps.
It has been. In the last
Wow.
few years, it really has in regards to the bids that we're seeing come through the door compared to what we had 2 to 5 years ago.
Do you think that's because of the materials or work or both?
I think what we saw is the materials demand and pricing in COVID. Contractors were losing as they were setting a bid price and those materials were escalating, they were losing out. So then their future bids were starting to collect and catch up to that. That's what we've talked with AGC a little bit about. The other thing that kind of have driven some of these numbers is just the general market. When we have 1 and 2 bidders on projects, because the other 3, 4, or 5 are on a development project, that has driven some of it. We've seen in the last 3 months more demand for our projects, and we've heard a little bit that these may taper. But part of this too, I think, is that a couple years ago, we maybe didn't have as much data on tanks because we hadn't built as many new tanks. And so there had been maybe a lag in some of our pricing before. So these are all very solid in the last couple of years of actual costs coming in. And then those are current dollars. So we're putting current dollars in, projecting them forward. And that's kind of how we go through this update.
Thank you.
Question on that?
Sure.
Is it possible that, like, for the tank, you hadn't been buying them, so it's not a 2-year increase, 170%, but maybe reflects a 5-year increase or something?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm alluding to, is that maybe our update from 2 years ago was low and we had only increased it 20% when really we should have increased it 70%. And so it's kind of compounded in these estimates.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
And so I'll briefly go through the methodology of how we calculate the water service facility, water system facility charges. And so basically, what we're looking at, we're trying to incorporate the 2040 water facility plan, facilities that have been identified and refined in that facility, make sure we incorporate that into this calculation, incorporate the latest construction bids as we just talked about and the historical costs to use that in actually both in the regards to facilities that have recently been built as well as projecting forward. And then also include in this calculation is the facility charges that we have collected since the last update, as well as the GPM that we've sold since the last update. And so this is real simplicity, a simple form of the calculation, but this is the basis of it. And so basically you have to determine what the total cost of growth is. You have project expenditures allocated to growth, plus finance or carrying charges. And then, of course, the estimated cost of future projects gives you a total growth cost. And then you subtract out the fees that have been collected to date, which is the remaining costs that we need to recover going forward. And then we have an estimate in regards to the amount of GPM that we can recover that cost on going forward as well. And so basically you end up with that remaining cost of growth divided by the remaining GPM that we can sell, gives you your unit cost, which is $1 per GPM max day.
I'm not sure I really followed that. Could you say it again?
But what part?
This calculation, divided by, et cetera, and you said you came to a conclusion that it was $1 per GPM? I didn't follow.
Just the unit of the dollar per GPM is all it is. So basically it's the remaining cost of growth, whatever.
What are these remaining costs? I don't really understand what this is, how this works.
Okay, so it's.
And I suspect others don't either.
Take the shot.
Okay.
So basically, you're above the line, your numerator is all your costs.
Yeah.
Whether they were existing and we've already spent the money, or they're projected and forward-looking. The bottom line is the remaining GPM available capacity.
This is what I didn't really understand. I mean, how do you calculate the remaining, aren't you growing the ability to provide water? So how do we say it's like a fixed remaining number?
Well, what we're saying is on the last slide that had $200 million of infrastructure for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
That is the GPM that we're planning. So we're building $200 million of infrastructure for a certain amount of GPM.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, what is that GPM?
Each area is different.
Okay,
So we've planned for a 20-year growth in, say, Spanish Springs that is different than South Truckee Meadows. And that's why each area has its own GPM number and its own numerator for
so
infrastructure.
it's not that it's fixed forever, but it's just fixed for the planning period?
Correct.
Okay.
And we're
so-
constantly, when we update that facility plan, we're adjusting it. And
Well,
we're
since
saying,
costs are changing so quickly, I just wonder if we should be calculating it for a 20-year, because you're taking all the costs, right? And, which are today, point in time. And then you're taking all the growth for the future and you're saying, this is what it will cost for this, but we don't really know, right? I mean, costs could go up. They probably will, based on what you've just showed us.
yeah, which is why updating these every couple of years is a good practice, because if we estimate $3.5 million on a pump station and it actually comes in at 3, 2 years from now, we're gonna adjust that portion of it down. That's a simplified summary.
Okay.
But in general, when every 2 years we update it, we say, okay, we thought 25% of the growth was gonna occur in Spanish Springs over the last 5-year planning period. It only came in at 20%. So let's adjust it and make sure we're really looking at this. So then we're looking at where did we project the growth to come in? And then we look at where did it actually come in? Same thing with costs. Where do we think the costs are gonna go? Where did it actually come in? And
Okay,
we
so
have
the
these
20 years is like a moving target, okay.
with the facility plan.
All right, I
Yeah.
think I get it now.
Yeah, and I think the key is that you do both. I mean, these guys are doing that, and the one thing that might help, I'd almost say in the future, if we see this again, is actually plug in some numbers.
Right.
And you plug in the numbers, then
Could follow it easier.
in
Maybe
math.
that's coming
When I was
next.
back in algebra and geometry, we do these math problems that didn't have math in them. They had words, and you're always like, But I actually do understand, I believe, what we're talking about here, and I think
do now.
we're getting it. But I would say that we do have to look out 20 years, because we have to be looking at what potential, but always comparing it to today and adjusting to today. So I think you have both that are necessary, but. Cool.
And so the results of the methodology, the update here is basically summarized in regards to each area. And then the existing fee, the proposed fee, the change, and the percent change as well. And at the bottom of this slide, you have kind of the supply and treatment fee and the storage fee and their associated changes as well. So you can see a lot of the areas had the greater change where there's a significant amount of growth occurring. And a lot of that's associated with this inflation and additional facilities that needed, a significant amount of facilities that need to be built in those areas.
So these are on a per GPM basis, which is confusing to some. So we converted it to a per house, per apartment unit basis.
Gives you a better idea when you talk about, a single-family residential unit, what's the difference on that? And so these next two slides kind of give that summary. And so you look at, we took a snapshot of various areas that are significantly growing that we serve. And you can kind of see what the existing fee would be per single-family residential unit. So a typical 6,000 square foot lot is what we're looking at here. And then, and so these are the actual dollars a developer would pay per unit. And so you can kind of see the change between what we have today and what we're proposing is roughly $1,500 per unit. And again, it depends on where you are in our system.
When are we collecting the fees, at time of building permit, or did we change that to time of C of O?
So for single-family unit, there is the option to defer the fee. It was put in the downturn.
Yeah.
And we have some rule cleanup that we need to do. It says C of O, And then there's some timelines related to C of O, but we don't really have access to that timing. We track the meter set,
Yeah,
which is similar,
yeah,
but not exact. So
Yeah.
we have some things to try and take a look at and see. The other thing we're dealing with, and we'll have to come back another time, is with these deferred fees. And the downturn was kind of, hey, let's get some of this development going, get some units started, defer these fees, and the tracking of those fees has become
Yeah.
intensive. And so now we're tracking thousands of these deferred
Yeah.
fees.
yeah,
And I think it was an unintended consequence.
Yeah.
So that's just to say we have some things to clean up related to that.
yeah. I think so. I think so. Because, there's a lot of sensitivity to your projections, and because your projections are looking back, and if it's hard to look back on all this timing of, when things are coming to market or, charging, it's going to hurt your projections going forward. Administratively, it's tough. And I think the projections are the hardest thing to do, and, anyway, whether it's you guys or the plan, and I think we're in new territory, and that's why having really timely information on when the lots are coming on, at what pace, is it to your projection pace, is pretty key, I think.
Yeah. It's just interesting looking, I mean, we seeing this across the board in all the boards we serve on, that everybody, we're seeing this, especially with housing, just go up and up and up. And so before you ever set foot in to do anything in a house, you already are spending, I mean, it just becomes more and more unaffordable, which is interesting. But obviously it is what it is. I mean, and I do appreciate being sensitive on what we're trying to think it might be, but I get it. Any other questions?
I got one, I guess more. When you say you gave the median home price and you have this average, but are you operating on the average, or are you actually applying all 18 different separate fees?
Each area gets its own separate
That's what I
fee.
thought. Okay, so I didn't want to be confused by you giving us these averages, because I see there was 120% increase on your last slide, and there was also 0, and there was also minus almost 100%.
The reason we picked these are the highest growth
Growth,
areas,
yeah,
to
so
try and
more
give people an
typical.
idea of where are the most homes being built. This is
Exactly.
the most impact. These are the ones most impacted, the most units.
Right.
But you're going to charge a different facility fee for each of the areas.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And so what you see here is in this third column, our proposed fee total per single-family residential.
Yep.
If a developer came in area 3, that's what the fee would end up being for a 6,000 square foot lot, would be that 7,700. That's what they would pay, cut a check for. And then the next slide here is an apartment unit for the most part, multifamily residential. So same analysis, kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at in regards to their impacts.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we're to the question, right? Are we into the questions now overall? Any questions at large on any of this? I think that it just seems like the prices, I don't like the numbers. I don't like your numbers, sir.
We have sticker shock.
I know it is. There's a lot there. Yeah.
So I actually don't have a question. It's just a comment. Thank you guys very much for what you've done, for reaching out into the building development community and communicating. I'm assuming what we're looking at here is what you've been providing in these presentations so they can see. In general, I've heard we're not happy, but we understand. I was concerned with a couple comments I've heard in the last week. One, believing that maybe Tumwa looks at the term was gold-plated standards to do some of the things that need to be done in a development or in the community. And I believe I did a good job of addressing that by talking about these things. He had not seen this presentation, but I tried to relate it to his business and personal life and where things have gone as far as our costs and expenses and how things have changed so much, and that likewise we need to adjust accordingly. But I guess I want to say that I want to make sure that we as a board and as an organization never take it lightly, increases like this. Because we're talking about attainable housing and, you know, how do you have an affordable home when you're looking at connections fees and sewer fees that are upwards of 40,000, or if it's even a low-income housing multifamily project that you're looking at over $1 million for those fees. So those are the kind of things that I just want to make sure that we never just easily say, yes, let's add on, because again, for people to be able to afford to live in a home, we need to do everything we can to be as cost-effective as possible. So I guess this is just my comment. No question. I think you guys are doing a great job. I know that, you know, staff has done a great job in the past of explaining, here's where we are, here's where we need to go. And again, it's a moving target depending on inflation, things like that. But I guess I just wanted to make that comment. So thank you.
Yes.
And I'm wondering on the policy side, to Councilman Anderson's question or comment, I was thinking of, there was an apartment complex that we broke ground on last year in Sun Valley, and they got home consortium funds, and then we as Washoe County made some exceptions to help them make it. It's a 30 to 60% AMI housing project, and I'm curious, does Tumwa have any policies to work with those type of projects currently? And have we done any? It sounds like in the past we have allowed for people to pay for their fees later, which is a difficult tracking for staff. But have we ever done anything like that on the, you know, really affordable housing piece?
Danny Rotter, for the record, no, the Tumwa policy has been that no classes or projects are subsidized by
Okay.
another. So that's been the policy, and that's been the methodology to date.
Okay.
Now, of note, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
One thing we're doing to mitigate that in Reno is we have been waiving permit fees and sewer connection fees for affordable housing. So we've been making an exception for this class of housing. I don't think we're currently waiving water connection fees. So it's something we should be taking, you haven't heard of it, us doing it?
That's the question, that's the same question, you know, just said a different way. We're not subsidizing, we're not.
No, I mean at Reno.
Oh, at Reno.
I don't think
Got it.
that you're aware that we are waiving water connection fees.
You're waiving sewer connection fees.
Yes, but we aren't waiving water connection.
Correct, because they're paid to Tumwa.
Yeah,
And
we
Tumwa's
can't waive
not.
them. Good point. But we can't, we could pay for them. We could pay you for them as a different idea.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to say. Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say, is that we could,
Reno would allocate funds to. pay-
exactly.
Okay.
So I don't know. These are just things we've been trying to do to, subsidize, underwrite affordable housing. So I'm thinking about it.
So one of the big things that, at least where my heart goes on this board, as we've been through the process of conversation and we've seen this rise, and it's hard because water also is one of those things that everyone, we can't go without water in this community, obviously. It is the basis for life, and so it's very difficult. There's other areas that we might be able to pinch or come back, but we need our water to be at a level that is not making people sick, that actually is there when they turn on their faucet, that can do all the things we need it to do. And so it's a difficult thing. It's a necessary cost for every person that lives to have this water. And so that's what we get to protect. So it is hard. I almost feel like it is what it is. It's just the cost of us making sure we have this foundation water for our region. But it is hard. I don't know if there's grants or things that we could ever look at, but it would be nice if there was a way to not subsidize and have one pay for another, but if there was a way to even potentially have a grant money to help those who cannot find a place to live, or we can't build for, it's gonna get to the place, if we're not careful, all the prices goes up so high that even attainable housing that we're trying to do is still not attainable because of the cost factor, so.
I was just going to say, Mr. Chair, so we'll come back in June with a staff report just talking about kind of the new business process, the kind of the pace of development, and Danny and Dave can just talk about the back and forth they have with all developers and consultants to try to make that process as, effective, efficient as possible. So look for that.
Thank you. Any other questions before we, like I said, the way this is set out, there's no motion on this presentation. The next one will have public hearing, and then we'll actually vote on that. Or it's the first reading, actually. So we vote on that next round? It was the first reading?
That's correct, yeah. So the first item was just to introduce it. This item, item number 12, will be the first reading of these WSF fee updates, and then next month will be the second reading, so that they're implemented in July.
Thank you. Perfect. Any other questions before we close down number 11? Okay. Thank you for that update. We're going on to 12. I will go ahead, and this is the introduction and first reading of amendments to Tumwa rate schedule, water system facility charges, revising area fee, supply and treatment, and storage unit costs. And do you want to do an introduction before I open it up for public? I think we said enough about it.
I would just say that the red lines to this amendment was included in the informational item, and then it's re-included under item 12 in your packet.
Very good. Is there any official reading that needs to happen, or we do have enough information about it already? That's enough information. Okay, thank you very much. I'll open up for, our public hearing is open. Is there any public comment? I'll go ahead and close that. And for the record, if anybody's listening out there that wants to know, this will come back next month to us for official vote from our board.
But don't we have to vote on the first ordinance?
You don't want to vote on the first ordinance? Okay. Sorry, we usually don't do that.
You do it the opposite.
Yeah, we do it the opposite. I know, we're backwards or forward, whichever way you look at it. So, I have a motion to accept this first reading.
I'll move.
I have a first, do I have a second?
Second.
First and second, any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously for the first reading. Okay. We're closed public hearing. We're discussion and action on resolution number 324, a resolution concerning the financing of water projects, declaring the Truckee Meadows Water Authority intent regarding reimbursement from one or more future bond issues, authorizing the authority representatives to request that state of Nevada, that such bonds in the maximum aggregate principal amount of $55 million to be purchased by the state of Nevada account by the revolving fund and providing the effective date. And this is Matt Bauman.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Matt Bowman, Tumwa CFO for the record. As you know, we take treasury management very serious at Tumwa. We saw that with the cash optimization refinancing that we completed just a few months ago. And this is another example of that. So the resolution you have in front of you is basically stating that Tumwa is serious and intends to borrow up to $55 million of SRF money to fund the American Flat APW project. You're all aware of that project, so I'm not going to cover that in any detail today. But we had a good update on that project as well in March. Our original intent was to fund that project out of cash reserves through various means, connection fees being one of them, as well as our resource sustainability fee and future water rights sales from that project. However, we were made aware that the NDEP, Office of Financial Assistance, has $100 million of 1% money available for drinking water projects. And so we would like the opportunity to take advantage of that. So we've been in discussions with NDEP. One of their asks is to have this resolution approved by the board stating Tumwa's interest in this money, and then they will likely be allocating this money amongst other entities. I'm not aware of who else is applying for it, but I would imagine 1% money is getting a lot of attention. And so the process from here is that if the board were to approve this resolution, we would move forward with a loan application with the NDEP. And then in 2025, as was discussed in the March meeting when we talked about American Flat, the board would approve the GMP for the project. And then at that time, we would bring back another resolution, an actual bond resolution for this money, and then move forward with negotiating a contract with the state of Nevada to take this loan. So this resolution today, again, is non-binding. It's a sort of a declaration of intent. that we want to provide to NDEP. The resolution was drafted by our bond counsel. It's not uncommon for this type of resolution to go forward. And so that's where we're at today. If the board doesn't approve the resolution, we would continue with the plan to fund the project out of cash reserves.
Ms. Hill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is great that you're working through these opportunities, state funding opportunities, and I'll be in support. Have we looked at, and you'll have to remind me, I've asked this at every board, have we looked at the Nevada State Infrastructure Bank as well?
We have not looked at that for a while.
Okay.
Specific to this project, and it was one of the considerations early on.
I just know from board members, and I'll send you the website, that they're like, we need some more projects in Northern Nevada. And so I know that there's some other folks on other boards that are applying for that funding, but I will send you the link as another opportunity. Or maybe even the
Please,
city of
yeah.
Reno could do it too, because they have a piece of this project as well. So,
Great.
thank you.
Yes, Ms. Purkis?
Last numbers that we've seen on, you know, how the partnership is working is that Reno has not been reimbursing us for money because things have kind of been in a holdup on their end.
No, the ILA is a 70-30 split.
Okay.
70% Reno,
Theirs.
30%
Okay, and
Tumwa.
we haven't been sending money to them.
They've reimbursed us for 70% of all the project costs incurred to date. So I think what you're referring to is just that the plan of the project that was put together in the budget over the last year, even before that, the project has just not progressed as quickly, and so the money hasn't been spent by Tumwa.
Yeah.
But what has been spent has been reimbursed
Okay,
on time.
yeah,
by
yeah,
City of
and
Reno.
that, you know, that progression is really in my sights. I mean, and Reno, the partner that we're in here with, I think just hasn't been having the highlighted attention to me, you know, the council, on where that is going. It was mentioned in an aside at a council meeting in the last, you know, I think this year already, that the date and timing for bringing on the RISWRF has, which is already done in the fence work, slipped to 28 now. And that's information that just should not be mentioned as an aside at a council meeting. There should be a, you know, more information. And it's not coming. And I continue to have concerns with Reno's sewer funds and financial management in general. Example is Reno just spent $1 million out of the last meeting, out of the sewer fund to remodel a floor at City Hall. And this project continues to grow and continues to get out, and there's time and cost of, you know, large infrastructure projects, of course, which I understand. But I have been asking over here for a long time to have an understanding of, you know, what is somewhere where we can read the schedule. And I'm the longest sitting board member here, I think. I came in at the very tail end of the merger with Stimgid and Washoe County Utilities. And I remember a GAT chart, if that's what you call it, you know, the big chart of tasks to be done, like no one's business. It was impressive, incredibly impressive. It still strikes on me, you know, 6 or 7 years later. I've been looking for that. I've been asking for that. I'm not seeing that here, and I'm not seeing it there. And so I'm at a problem on this, particularly the way you phrase it, that, you know, it can be competitive money, and who knows, you know, good, you know, someone in Elko could be wanting this money too, and they don't have an infrastructure project that is, you know, getting these delays without good understanding of why. So, you know, that's where I'm at on this, really. And did you have something?
Yeah, real quick, Danny Rauter for the record. We put together a pretty good high-level, but actually pretty detailed, including a very extensive Gantt chart, the last meeting.
Yeah.
And so,
which I was not here, and I'll
yeah, so
acknowledge that.
I think if you want to take a look at those slides, they were really well done by our project manager.
Okay.
With the intent to provide the whole board that update on timing, on operations timing, on our O&M agreement, on our financing timing,
Okay.
production timing. So
Okay.
maybe take a look at that, and if you want me to go through the detail with
Yeah,
you,
I
can do that.
might, but you know, again, it's our partner. And I want us to be in a good partner, and I'm not seeing it from the partner. In fact, flags raise on a monthly basis on the partner.
Well, I'd say definitely if we can make sure that she's updated on that. I do remember it was quite robust.
I'll send
in
them
that nature.
directly and then.
But coming to what we're talking about on here, I think it's really wise for us to continue to look at as many financial aspects. There's no reason to make it really tight over here if we have ability to do a 1%, this kind of potential. So is there any conversation regarding that loan that we can, before we take a vote?
Just amazing. I mean, fantastic opportunity.
I know I want a 1% loan.
I just sent a note to Reno to make sure I'm chair of the Debt Management Commission, and we've approved the sale of $70 million bonds. They're going to do $80 million from cash at Reno. And I just want to make sure, which, are we going municipal bond market? Are we going to DEP? And I just sent them that question because if we can get a lower interest rate too.
Yeah, and I do want to clarify, this is only drinking water, not applicable to
can't-
clean water.
It can't, okay. Okay.
Oh, thank
There
you.
go. That helps.
Yeah,
But
and
that's-
the
go ahead.
intent of NDEP doing this is to garner interest in the drinking water SRF program, which benefits
Yeah.
the state as a whole, and that's really what they're trying to do here.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for a motion on this.
I'll move to adopt resolution number 324.
That's a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I'm going to be a no, just on the partnership, and just since it's mentioned up on Reno's bonds, unlike Tama, are revenue-backed, and that means backed by general obligation. So those are a much more exposed instrument. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Breckus. Mr. Reese, do you have any more discussion on this before we make a vote?
No, but I am very impressed by the work that the Tumwa team has done, and City of Reno is an excellent partner and continues to be one, so I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. With that said, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes with one opposition with Ms. Breckus. So thank you for the work you've done and continued work that we keep doing. So thank you so much. Okay, we're moving on to 14. This is discussion and possible action on adoption of resolution number 325, a resolution to approve funding for one or more of the projects recommended by the Truckee River Fund Advisory Committee, and an authorization for the Community Foundation of Northern Nevada to fund such projects from fund proceeds. So Sonia Folsom and Cara Steeland.
Morning, Chair, Board of Directors, Sonia Folsom for the record. We have provided you with all the RFPs that was submitted back in February. The Truckee River Fund Advisory Committee had a meeting on February 16th. They received 9 RFPs, and the advisory committee approved recommendation 8. The one that was not approved was the Tahoe Rim Trail Association Trailhead Ambassador Support to protect Tahoe's watershed, which was to purchase distributing dog waste bags and leashes all around Tahoe, and for the purposes to protect the Lake Tahoe Basin's watershed. We have typically not funded projects in the Tahoe Basin, and that was not approved for funding. The other 8 were, in a nutshell, because there's a lot, watershed education, noxious weed removal, also sedimentation reduction, as well as the River Stewards Initiative, which is picking up where a similar project left off to hire unhoused or formerly unhoused individuals to improve the trash and cleanup along the river corridor, as well as the Lower Truckee Trout Habitat, which will install several J-hooks along the Truckee River in Crystal Peak Park in Verdi, and the Independence Lake Forest Resilience Project requested by the Nature Conservancy, as well as the River Justice Pollution Reduction and Sustaining Water Quality, which will have multiple river cleanups along the Truckee River and around Pyramid Lake. In addition, the budgets, the revised budgets, because the funding amount that was available was less than what was requested. There were 4 projects that reduced their funding requests, and now it's on table 2. And the revised budgets are included in their respective RFPs. And with that, we'll answer any questions.
Just quickly, I want to note for the record that Clara Andriola did have to leave, and Devin Reese. We still have a quorum, and we are good, but
Oh, Devin.
Devin did have to bounce as well. Yeah. So please, no one else leave, or we're we're pretty close to being done. But with that said, any questions or concerns or thoughts? I only have one that I want to share at the end. So, okay.
Great work as usual. And I know that the city of Reno, I don't want to speak for the city of Reno, but I had spoken to them about, they want to apply next cycle. So I don't know how we get them on our distribution list.
City of Reno employees have already, there were a couple on the distribution list, and I've added 3 more to the program managers at Community Foundation. So she's aware of those 3 additional employees to be added for the next cycle in August.
Yes, thank
That
you.
will be open in July.
I'm just talking
July.
about the River Rangers project.
Yeah,
That's all.
I just sent a text to them actually right now to remind them
Yeah.
to make sure they got their application in, but I didn't realize that they had to connect with the Community Foundation. I didn't know they were fully managing this for us.
Yes,
okay.
they fully manage it. Lauren Renda, program manager at the
Who
community.
is the name?
Lauren Renda, program manager at the Community Foundation, has a distribution list. She has always sent, when the RFP cycle opens, to 2 employees, 1 in the Utilities Department and 1 in the Parks and Rec Department. And since last cycle, we have added the assistant manager, Ashley Turney, and 2 more individuals that I do not recall off the top of my head. The River Stewards budget reflects an in-kind donation, which I've been told was from City of Reno.
Cool. So one of the things that I just want to make known, and it's a conversation that we've been having, when it comes to things, what the scope of the work of this finances goes towards is for things upriver and to our border. We really typically don't get to do things downriver because of some of we even have conversations going on that we've had in the past with our Attorney General from the state of just making sure how this money's spent, where it goes, what it does. But with that said, my encouragement for any downstream finances going out is to make sure they're working with the jurisdiction next to us. And then us teaming up with our jurisdiction next to us makes sense in my world that we are all working together collaboratively. And so it's not just for people downstream, because we just have to be careful of that. And so I know we have one approved this time that has that in there. And that's, I'm comfortable. But as we guide forward, we want to make sure that instruction's there, and we can help with that. So if somebody does come, and so Story County would need to be involved, or somebody of that fashion as well.
We can clarify the criteria prior to the next RFP cycle.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that's known. Any questions on that? I think we all have, we understand. So with that said, I am looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
First and a second, any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And I'd say this is exciting. I love when we get to do things. Our river is crucial and very important. Okay, we are on to 15, discussion and action and possible direction to staff regarding reappointment of Eddie Quaglieri to represent Tumwa on the Carson Truckee Water Conservancy District Board. And hello, you're not John Zimmerman, that's who it says.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Eddie probably has one of the toughest names to pronounce. It's actually Quaglieri, but you've never.
Oh, I
pronounced
said it
from his name.
wrong.
So as John Enlow plans for retirement in the next few years, he currently sits on this board, and so we wanted to appoint Eddie Quaglieri for it. This appointment goes to the governor, who does the official appointment to that board. Eddie's been with us almost a year. He's also has a lot of experience with the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada, Carson City Public Works, and then also the State Engineer's Office. So just has a wealth of experience, and I'm excited to have him on that board. Thank you.
Very good. We are going to get to vote on this in a moment, but is there anything you'd like to say?
No, Eddie Collier for the record again. I actually had the pleasure of working on the maintaining the Truckee River for the lower half from Glendale down to Wadsworth. That's the state engineer's office that maintains that for flood capacity of 10,000 cubic feet per second flood control way. So did the lower half, and I'm happy to help out on the upper half now.
Very good. Any questions from our board? With that said, I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
I have a first. Do I have a second? We got our second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you for your hard work and continued work. Appreciate it. General Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll try to be brief, but I have a few things to go over. So as part of our succession planning, employee development, one of the things we wanted to do was to help our employees recognize and leverage the diverse background, the diverse workforce that we have at Tumwa, and also improve our communication, collaboration, and leadership skills. So over the past month of March, we had our entire employee group, including management, do half-a-day workshops with a local consultant, Diaz Dixon, who I think many of you know, to facilitate those. Again, it was focused on diversity awareness, improving communication, leadership collaboration, and I heard directly from about 20 employees, and they were very happy with how that went. Gave Diaz very high marks, so we're very fortunate to have him in the community. This is not a check-the-box exercise. We'll continue to engage with employees on how to leverage our diversity to make us better and help us continue to fulfill our mission to the community. And I'd like to thank all the directors, managers, supervisors, because we got nearly every employee. We have about 280, and I think only about 6 of them missed the workshops for various reasons. So thank you to the team for really ensuring that all of their employees got there. And one in particular who's in the audience who didn't know I was going to call on him today, back there with the ball cap, is Brent Smith, who leads our heavy crew in the distribution side. These are the folks that are out there fixing emergency leaks all the time. And so for him to get his group together to go through these half-day workshops was a big effort. So thank you, Brent, and the rest of that team. And then other than the workshops, we've also been cycling employees through Chalk Bluff like we have been doing with board members, just to make sure they see, all of our employees get a chance to see and hear from Will Raymond and others about our main treatment plant. We've also been doing job shadowing as much as we can. And then we're also holding so-called lunch and learns where employees can kind of bring their bring their brown bag lunches and just hear more detailed presentations about different department functions. That was one of the things we heard from the employee surveys we did last year, I believe, or a few years ago. So we're continuing with that. And then Andy and his communications team is also doing mock interviews with some of the supervisors and others who are more than likely to talk with the media in the future. And then lastly, as I said, we've heard from a few developers just experiencing delays or unexpected setbacks on their projects. And so Danny Rotter, Dave Kershaw, and their team will just try to have more workshops, open that communication up a little more, and try to give them more guidelines, more help, just to avoid any misunderstandings, teach them the common mistakes, just so they can get their projects through as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And then we'll also give an update to the board in June, just to talk about the new business project. And then lastly, again, Smart About Water reminder, May the 4th, be with you, Star Wars Day. So we'd love to have all board members come out and really help us talk to the community about what we're doing, because it's exciting work. So with that, I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for our manager? I'd like to commend our manager in the work. I can tell you, it sounds interesting. Sometimes having workshops and things for helping staff to grow personally in their own life, but also together, sometimes seems, at least there was a time where it seems like it takes away from work, but I think it adds to work. I think it adds to the value of the work that's being done and the camaraderie, and that's the kind of atmosphere I think we want to create. And so attaboy, Mr. Zimmerman, and your leadership team for doing that, and for the staff. I think it does no good to have these if staff does not participate. And so it is a culture we want to create and foster, and I think that's fantastic. I know you guys heard that from the board a little while ago of things we were concerned about looking into, and I think these are all great investments into that, so thank you. Okay, with that said, we are moving on to public comments. Any public comment? I see none or hear none, so we're going to move on to board comments. Is there any board comments or requests?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
The Reno City Council made a remarkable decision last week, and that was granting an entitlement that would involve, for the first time that I know of, a connection of incorporated land to a satellite water district for new development. I think Reno's annexed into existing clients, but in particular, this one, the Great Basin Water District. And so Reno's has a new, practice of putting new development onto a satellite system. And with Stonegate, that was out in that area, it was always predicated that it was going to go on to the Tumwa Regional Water Source, as it should. But now Stonegate has fallen off. Who knows what's going on with that? And another development has jumped ahead in that area in the incorporated boundaries and is going to be connecting onto that satellite system. We all know these satellite systems are just creeping, liabilities for the region. And I think this board should have a mindful examination into what that satellite system is, what their capacity is, what their service area is, and know about that, because time and time again, when these fail, who comes in to save the day? It's Tumwa. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burgess. Okay. With that said, I want to thank everybody for being here, and I hope you're doing well. And it's nice outside, so do not stay inside all day long. We are adjourned.